Welcome, everybody. Week 6 edition of the Best Effin' Fantasy Show. The only place you need to go for information regarding your Week 6 lineup. I'm your host, Steve Albertini, live from the basement as always. Joined by Jerry Procopio.
I'm laughing all the way to the bank.
Carmen Del Mastro.
Back to back to back to back.
Our producer, Nick Specca.
Do exactly what you want. Print what you want.
And a special guest to provide some insight and analysis, and that is Nick DiNardo. Nick, welcome.
How you doing?
Nick, good to have you here, Nick.
Good to have you. Nicky is a long-time fantasy legend. And I'm sure he'll be dropping some knowledge on us for Week 6. The bye weeks are starting to pick up. We got 4 this week where some big-time fantasy studs will be affected, so you need to adjust your lineup accordingly, and we're going to jump right into it. But before we do, follow us on Twitter at BestEffinShow. Check out the website, besteffinfantasyshow.com. Week 6, 4 byes: Carolina, Chicago, Jacksonville, New Orleans. Couple of fantasy studs lumped in there. In particular, we're going to start with the quarterbacks. Drew Brees from New Orleans, of course, coming off another monster week, and Cam Newton of Carolina. Been subpar, but regardless of, you drafted Cam Newton high, you're looking for a replacement for him this week. Jared, why don't you lead us off some quarterbacks that are worth picking up this week?
The first guy that I would pick up, if he's on the waiver, Christian Ponder. He's been pretty solid this year. He had a good week last week. They go to Washington. There's nothing scary about that matchup. I see him having a nice week. A couple other guys, Andy Dolan and Andrew Luck. If they're still on the waivers, I would look at them too. Especially if you're a Romo owner, how bad he's been. Now he goes to Baltimore.
Yeah.
I would plug any one of those guys in this week.
Can I ask you a question about Andrew Luck? At this point, now everyone's going crazy over Robert Griffin. Everyone's going crazy about Andrew Luck. Who would you rather have going forward for this year, Luck or Griffin?
That's a tough question. Personally, I was never a big RG3 fan.
We know that.
Earlier in the year, but he's proven me wrong. I would go Andrew Luck.
Yeah,
not because I favor him more. I just think that he has a higher ceiling than Griffin does.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, Chair. Speaking in terms of strength of schedule too, Griffin, they haven't gotten their division games yet, which is also something to look into. And with Luck, they do play in a weaker division. So they are in the same division as the Texans, but then again, you look at garbage time production, which could be a factor in his late in the game scoring. So I would rather have Luck.
Still has 2 games against Tennessee left, another game against Jacksonville.
Yeah.
I think 2 guys that I think in reality everyone is high on and they expect a bright future for both of them. I don't think anyone expected the fantasy output that both of them have given us in the first quarter of the season.
Nope.
And it'll be interesting to see that going forward. Jay Cutler, another guy that's on a bye this week. Jay Cutler is probably the definition of a roller coaster in terms of fantasy output. He'll have an absolutely brutal 4-interception game one week, and then the next week he'll come back and wow us. What do we think about Cutler in the grand scheme of things going forward?
Here's a guy, in my opinion, he's going to fool a lot of people because he's not going to be a guy that's going to throw 4 touchdowns a game. He's going to be a guy, he'll give you maybe 2 at the most. Further in the season, his schedule coming up, though, it has the ability to fool people because they do play at Detroit when they come off the bye, and then they play Carolina, Tennessee, but then when you get further into it, they go against Houston, San Fran, Minnesota, Seattle, Minnesota again, Green Bay, Arizona, so it gets ugly for them going further into the season. But for right now, when they come off the bye, he can provide a couple nice games for any of the owners. And I know he's available in a lot of leagues because a lot of people got fed up with him early in the season already.
No, I don't like him. That's all I'm going to say. I just stay away from him.
It's a love-hate relationship.
Yeah, and not to mention he just lost Alshon Jeffrey for, 6 weeks?
He broke his hand.
Yeah.
So, now that, even though Marshall's there, Jeffrey was supposed to be a guy that was going to come up big for them. Now he's going for 6 weeks, so that's another thing that's going to hurt him.
Evan Rodriguez.
I don't know.
Where else are you going to hear Evan Rodriguez? No, but it's important to note, yes, Jay Cutler is on bye this week. So if you have him, adjust for this week. Jacksonville, another team that's on bye, really the only guy on the team worth starting week to week is Maurice Jones-Drew. Any running backs on the waiver wire worth picking up, Jer?
Well, you got the situation in Arizona now. William Powell is going to be a starter. LaRon Stevens-Howling. You don't know how that's going to pan out. You also got Alex Green and James Starks. You don't know what's going to happen there. So I think that the best pickup for running back this week is Alex Green, even though they're playing Houston next week. He's by default going to get the touches and the production. So
Yeah, in my opinion, I wouldn't own an Arizona Cardinals running back.
yeah,
I mean, if Ryan Williams wasn't able to get it done, he's their best running back they have on the roster. If he wasn't able to get it done, then there's not another guy that on that team that's going to be able to get it done. Plus, their offensive line is absolutely terrible.
There's issues on that line.
And them playing in
They
the
play
NFC West,
NFC,
they're probably four of the best defenses in the league right now. Not a good, batch of defenses you want to be playing against.
But any guys that are maybe worthy of a speculative pickup that maybe they're not going to perform for you this week, but maybe down the line we could see some returns on that investment.
Yeah, the stash pickup.
The stash.
It's all about the stash. Brandon Jacobs, he's a guy. He was supposed to come back this past week, but then he scratched him at the last minute. So he's a guy for a team in desperate need of red zone help with the 49ers. Brandon Jacobs definitely a guy you want to pick up and stash, especially in touchdown-heavy leagues. Go ahead and stash Brandon Jacobs on your bench because when they get down the red zone, he's going to be their version of Michael Bush.
another guy that he didn't really do anything last week, but he totaled 63 yards the week before. That's Ronnie Hillman. With McGahee fumbling last week, and ball security is an issue for him. Dropped the pass. McGahee can't catch the ball, and Hillman's healthy now, and he clearly passed Lance Ball on the depth chart. I think this guy's role is going to increase as the season goes on. I think he's like the next coming of Darren Sproles.
I want to get your opinion on David Wilson. He's a guy that we've been waiting for to break out. He had a nice 40-yard touchdown run with the game a little out of reach against Cleveland. But nevertheless, it's a guy that we expected a little bit of fantasy production from the beginning of the year. Fell into Coughlin's doghouse and now has seemed to been able to get back onto the field. Is Wilson, if he's available, worthy of a stash pickup?
He might be, but
This man has no dick.
well,
That was rude, Bill.
You can pick him up. I think Andre Brown's going to be fine in a few weeks. This week they're playing San Fran. I wouldn't touch him. If you have Ahmad Bradshaw, you want to go out and grab David Wilson.
If you have Ahmad Bradshaw, is Wilson the guy to own, or is Brown the guy to own?
I think the
As
Giants
his
trust Brown more because of what he's done before. Concussion, you don't know how long he's going to be out. I think 2 weeks most.
A couple notable wide receivers on by: Brandon Marshall, Steve Smith, Marcus Colston, tight end Jimmy Graham. What guys on the outside, wide receivers, tight ends, are worthy of being picked up this week?
Hey, what's up, baby?
Ladies and gentlemen, waltzing in the studio a mid-pickup segment is Angry Jigga Joe.
What are we talking about, guys?
Wide receivers.
I love wide receivers.
Pickups. I guess the first guy you want to look at, you want to check the status on Akeem Nicks. Ruben Randall looked like he passed Hickson on the depth chart. He was impressive last week. He's a guy that I think you could start in place of those guys. Also, Sidney Rice is a free agent in a lot of leagues. I would look at him too. He did good last week. Also, Josh Gordon, who we gave you last week, and nobody else.
We gave you? We did give you that,
Is
Jerry.
Josh Gordon the
I think
the
he's
number one guy in Cleveland?
honestly. I think he has way more upside than Greg Little.
He actually
But he's-
catches the ball.
He's a
Yeah, that's a good
he,
start.
he's very raw.
When
There
last
you
time
go.
you played Hide the Rainbow Road?
I mean, there's another guy. He's a free agent in a lot of leagues. Robert Meacham. I don't know if I'm buying that performance last week. It was against his old team, and they were playing one of the worst pass defenses in the league. So obviously he had the motivation to score against them.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm buying into it just yet either. And speaking of the Chargers wide receivers, another stash pickup. Vincent Brown is the guy who could be coming back in the next couple of weeks. He's the guy the Chargers wanted to be their number one receiver going into this season. He broke his ankle in preseason. He's actually ahead of his rehab, so his 8 weeks recovery has been moved up. So if he's a guy that you want to go ahead, pick up, stash him on your bench, he's going to produce when he comes back in the lineup because all the Chargers want to do is throw the ball. So go ahead, stash Vincent Brown. All we do is stash picks here at the Best Evan Fantasy Show.
Yeah, it's working.
Oh,
Investments.
Another guy we didn't talk about. Amendola out for 6 to 8 weeks, is it? Now, how are we going to replace him?
You tell me, Jared. How are we going to?
Sure, that's why you're here. You're supposed to tell
I'm going
us.
to tell you how
I asked the questions.
You full of shit. Don't you
you
understand
wanna
that
go-
you full of shit?
No, just keep
Don't
going.
draft Brian quick.
Okay.
Are you going to look to another Rams guy to replace
Well,
him if Amendola's on your roster?
If there are better options out there, then yeah. The Rams receivers, nothing special. Brandon Gibson's not a complete receiver. Chris Givens is a one-dimensional receiver. The next guy in line that I think is going to have the most impact in that receiving core is Austin Pettis. Remember last year when Amendola got hurt, who came in and had a few big games? Greg Salas,
The chef?
the chef.
Your man crush?
Yeah, Pettis is the new slot guy. I think that he's going to be a guy that's going to just come out of nowhere and start putting up points.
What about Lance Kendrick? See Lance Kendrick
Lance
producing
Kendrick.
and all?
He scored last week, but I'm not buying into him yet.
7 yards and
Yeah,
In 2 seasons.
yeah, he's
Congratulations, Lance.
he's just overhyped.
Yeah, Joe, another guy I want to talk about is Mario Manningham. You know, he's starting to come on the last 2 weeks. They're really starting to get him more involved in the offense. Going up against his old team, he could be another guy that's available on your waiver wire. Go ahead and plug him in against another weak secondary in the Giants.
How about Randy Moss?
How about Randy Moss?
Can't forget about him.
Do you speak any English?
No days off, no breaks. Here we go. Legends and Jerkoff segment for week 6. Carm, why don't you start us off? Because I don't like Jerry's impression of me, so I'm going to go to you.
All right, I'm going to start off with Demaryius Thomas at San Diego. San Diego giving up the 8th most fantasy points to opposing wideouts. We saw what the Saints did to the defense last week on Sunday night. Demaryius Thomas, nice play here.
All right, my first one, Ryan Matthews. I think it's clear that he earned his feature back duties.
Yeah, he didn't earn shit. Shut up. Yeah, one good week. One good week in 2 years.
I think he looked phenomenal.
How phenomenal.
Phenomenal.
Jerry.
Really good.
Phenomenal, really?
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
Did you see that dive into the end zone?
Incredible.
It was
Okay.
unbelievable. Bottom line, Denver got run over by who? Stephen Ridley last week. Matthews is going to kill it.
Kill it. Can I go back to Demaryius Thomas for a second?
Go ahead.
And I know in the preseason there was a lot of talk who was going to be the guy, Demaryius Thomas, Eric Decker. At this point in the season, who's Peyton Manning's favorite target in Denver?
He is going to Thomas more.
Yeah,
But I
it's
think-
definitely it's been Thomas.
Thomas just can't hold on the ball.
Yeah, he
2
dropped
weeks
the
in a
ball.
row with touchdowns he could have
Yeah.
had.
He's shown a lot of big playability.
Yeah. But I really think you can't go wrong with either one of those guys.
No.
They both get looks.
No, Peyton's
He
been
he trusts both
really
of them.
good.
I'm going to go Trent Richardson for my second against Cincinnati. Cincinnati giving up the 8th most points to opposing running backs. Trent Richardson's been an absolute beast no matter who they played
Beast.
up against. I mean, the guy's found the end zone pretty much every week this season. I don't see why that trend doesn't continue this week against a weak Cincinnati defense.
All right. My next one. He's been disappointing the last 2 weeks, but I think Andre Johnson comes back and plays like a number 1 receiver this week, which should be a high-scoring game. It's not going to be a game where Houston kills them and runs the clock out.
You have so many butt buddies in the NFL. It's unreal.
It's okay.
It's okay. It's
They're
good.
playing a team that can put up points, so they're going to have to throw the ball more. Andre's going to put up numbers.
All right, fine. My next one's Andrew Luck versus the Jets. I'm going to say, is this the Jets? So we'll go from there. Go from
All right, my next one, Michael Crabtree. Giants secondary is horrible. Other than Davis, he's the only guy making plays.
Is he? Frank Gore's not making plays?
Frank Gore's making in the
passing
receiving
game.
game.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. The next guy, we got Randall Cobb at Houston. You know, it's a tough matchup, but I do see Randall Cobb being the Packers' Mr. Everything this week. That's the only way they're going to be able to compete against that defense. Cobb's going to be lined up in the backfield and the slot, so I see a lot of work out of Cobb this week. So go ahead, plug him into your lineups.
All right, my next one, Big Ben. Tennessee's pass defense is awful. Pittsburgh's going to score a lot of points. I think 300 yards, 3 touchdowns.
All right, my last one. Everybody get ready for it.
I'm ready.
Fasten your seatbelts. This is for the ladies. Michael Vick at home against the Detroit Lions. Giving up. The Lions secondary is giving up 17 fantasy points or more to opposing quarterbacks. And I can see Jackson and Macklin both having big games to go along with Vick. They can get on top of the secondary. There's no reason why Mike Vick can't have a productive fantasy game this week. Go ahead, have some confidence in Mike this week.
As long as Sue doesn't kill him, he's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Snap him in half.
As long as Sue doesn't get to him, he's good.
I mean, yeah, granted, he'll turn the ball over once.
Sure.
You know,
Maybe twice.
It's a given.
throw it away.
Maybe
here
3
and there,
times.
but
Maybe 3 times.
A finger roll it.
we don't. All we care about is what those fantasy points are.
That's it.
If they're in high double digits,
At the end of the day.
it's all that matters.
Yep.
Who are the jerkoffs for Week 6?
My first one. Joe Hayden's back. I gotta say AJ Green.
You're just bitter because you lost last week, but that's it.
No.
Wow. Trash talk. I love it.
Zing.
I live- That's it. All right.
10 minutes later.
I got too many soundboards up. My first one, we're going to go with Ma Bradshaw at San Francisco. San Fran's giving up the least points to opposing running backs. He had a nice game last week. It's not going to happen this week.
All right, my next one.
No beef.
Rob Gronkowski. Seattle's been shutting down opposing tight ends all year. I think he's going to struggle in this game.
I like that, Jerry.
That's ballsy.
You got to be ballsy.
It's all about balls. All right, my next guy is Tony Romo at Baltimore.
Yeah.
The Tony Romo experience continues this week. Baltimore giving up the third least points to opposing fantasy quarterbacks. Romo owners just, woosah a little bit. Maybe.
You know what? I'm staying in the same game, and I was going to go DeMarco Murray.
I like that,
Yeah.
Jerry.
He's not going to do anything against that Baltimore defense.
And I'm gonna stay in the
offensive
same
line-
game too, Jerry. I'm gonna go Des Bryant.
Okay.
So we're just gonna
So
pick
we're just-
apart Dallas.
Dallas, yeah.
We're not fans of Dallas this week, so
All right, my next one is huge game last week, but I think Cromartie shuts down Reggie Wayne this week. Mr. Do Everything.
We're going to see more Cromartie on offense, Joe?
I hope so.
all right. We got Stevie Johnson at Arizona. We talked about the schedule being horrific coming up. This week he gets the Patrick Peterson treatment. Not a favorable matchup for him.
My last jerk-off is Stephen Ridley. Seattle's run defense, I don't see it happening.
That's a trap game for the Patriots, by the way.
Yeah, I know. Seattle wins.
My last jerk, I'm gonna go Mikel LeSure at Philly this week. Not sold on his abilities. With Jock Bell starting to cut into his playing time a little more. He's got better pass catching abilities out of the backfield. I'm just not sold on LeSure's abilities. Not a favorable matchup for him. He's a jerk off this week.
Who are your who the is that sleepers for Week 6?
Who are you?
Nobody.
No. I know you. He's Jimmy's brother, the guy, the singer.
Jerry, you're the king of the sleeper. Why don't you go first?
Okay. Well, I got 3 of them.
All right, do it. Go
They
for
better
it,
all
Jerry.
be people that I've never heard of before.
Okay, my first one.
They usually are.
All right, my first one's Armand Binns.
Nice.
Ooh, Armand
Nice.
Binns.
Digging
You know,
deep
we-
in
You
the crates.
understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
I figured Joe Hayden's back. He's going to be on AJ Green all day. Hawkins we already talked about. I think Armand Binns makes some big plays this week.
Yeah.
My next one, I talked about him earlier, Ronnie Hillman. I think this is the game that Denver starts to use him, especially in the passing game a lot. He's healthy. They want to use him. My last one, talked about in the preseason, Rob Housler. I don't know how to say his last name. But
Black Diamond Whistler.
Buffalo sucks against the tight end.
Sucks.
And this is a guy that's been he's been coming on lately.
The Hustler.
Yep.
Jerry, I only have one. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Have we heard of him?
We started up quite a debate earlier when you weren't here during the pre-production.
I've been here the whole time. I don't know what you're talking about.
No, you weren't. You were being angry
We
somewhere
were
else.
back at Tim Tebow
Peace conference.
Memorial Peace Conference.
No, that's him.
All right. My who the F is that sleeper this week? Brandon Myers, tight end for the Raiders, for those of you that don't know. They'll be playing at Atlanta this week. I see the Raiders having to try and score points in this game to try and make it respectable. Before the bye, Myers was third in the league among tight ends and receptions. So, I see him being more involved in the offense this week. Him, DMC, maybe a little bit of Denarius Moore on the side.
All right, we will be right back. Take some questions from our Twitter followers. Welcome back to the Best F in Fantasy Show, Week 6 edition, live from the basement. It's time to take some questions from Twitter as well as Facebook. If you don't follow us on Twitter, check us out at Best F in Show. Like us on Facebook. Check out the website, bestfinfantasyshow.com. Shoot us an email. Great social media presence. I'm going to pass it along to our producer, Nick Specker, who has the first question.
All right, our first question comes from Richie off our Facebook account. And he wants to know who's the better waiver wire, a Packer running back or an Arizona running back? And if so, which one should I pick up?
We talked about this earlier. I would say Alex Green has the most potential. The matchup's not favorable this week, but I think he's going to get the majority of touches.
Even with the fear of Starks being the starting running back?
I don't think he's going to start. I mean, the team's fed up with him. He's been hurt. I think it's probably going to be, at best, a timeshare where Alex Green gets the most work.
With the exception of their playoff run a couple years ago. James Starks has done nothing.
Yeah, he really hasn't done anything.
Our next question comes from at GJN27, and he says, "What do you think about this trade? Sproles, Des Bryant, and Fred Davis for MJD, Rudolph, and Nate Washington."
I would take that.
If you're getting MJD, I like that end of it, especially if it's a PPR league.
I agree. I absolutely agree with you, Jerry.
Yeah, I would go with the
Des Bryant's really
Yeah,
the
if
main-
you're getting MJD, definitely take that end of the deal.
Yeah.
Always take the top running back.
Is that a PPR league? I'm sorry. Did you
They didn't specify.
They didn't specify. Our next question comes from at Eagles Tar Heels, and he says, "I need trade help. I get Larry Fitz and Chris Johnson, and in return, I give Bradshaw and Bo away."
I don't want anything to do with Chris Johnson, so no. I want
Bradshaw.
Bradshaw and Bo.
Yeah, I want Bradshaw and Bo on my team. So.
Sit tight with Bradshaw
Yeah.
and Bo.
And even if something does happen to Bradshaw, which in some cases he does have a history of injury, because I'd rather have his backup than Chris Johnson. I'd rather have David Wilson or Andre Brown on my team.
All right, next question comes from at CFunk110.
C-Funk?
He has 2 questions, which is fine. He said, Jared Cook or Brent Selleck over Bennett this week?
I would go Selleck.
I'll go Selleck too.
Yeah, I like the matchup with Selleck. Like I said, I like Vic this week, so in return comes Selleck and the Eagles passing game. So yeah, I would go Selleck over them too.
I like Jared Cook, but either one's a win.
Against Pittsburgh on
Against
the short
Pittsburgh.
week.
All right, his second question is Arizona's defense or the Eagles' defense?
Arizona all day.
Yeah, I definitely gotta go Arizona.
All right, our next question comes from at Tiz45,
Tis.
and he wants to know Spiller, McGahee, or Stevie Johnson in the flex. It's a PPR league.
I would start Willis.
I would start Willis too.
All right, now we're off.
I go McGahee. It's not a great matchup, but it's the lesser of two evils, I guess. The Bills just got shellacked in San Francisco, staying out west, playing a tough Arizona defense. We already talked about we don't like Stevie Johnson this week. CJ Spiller, uncertain situation. In my opinion, I think McGahee's the lesser of two evils this week.
I didn't actually give my opinion on Stevie Johnson, but I actually like him this week over those two. You said it was a PPR?
Yeah, it's PPR.
I think Buffalo's going to be playing from behind all game. Stevie Johnson's going to get 10 to 15 looks in this game.
He didn't get 10 to 15 looks last game. So
He's going to get it this week.
how about we start? Okay, you know, coach over there.
We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Go with McGahee. He catches passes. He drops some every now and then, but he does catch a lot. Makes up for what he drops.
Spark the debate. It's encouraged. It's the best F in fantasy.
We love it. Keep hitting us up.
So we got a 3-1 over Stevie over there.
All right, so our next question comes from at Jerry Mouse 34.
Memes.
He wants to know, should I grab Cook, Miller, or Chandler for a PPR league, and am I dropping Jerry Simpson for them?
Jared Cook.
I would go Scott Chandler this week. You talked about targets. I think Scott Chandler is going to get some targets.
You really can't go wrong with any one of those guys, but I think Cook has the most upside. He's going to get the most looks. Hasselbeck throws to him a lot.
I like Cook. I think Cook's got a little bit of upside.
Go with Chandler.
I got a question via text from my boss. He wants to know, should I start Romo or Ponder this week?
We talked about it earlier. Ponder all the way.
Agreed.
It's unanimous.
Yeah, it's unanimous. I hate Romo.
All right, his final question is, should he start Chris Johnson or LaSure this week?
I think
LaSure has the opportunity to be less of a jerk-off, but they're still both jerk-offs this week, in my opinion.
Like Chris
Yeah, I
Johnson's
would
jerk
lean-
off for the year.
2 years.
LaSure might be just jerk off for the
6
week.
weeks.
I would lean more towards LaSure because you figure the Lions coming off a bye, they have more weapons on offense. I think LaSure has a better chance to score.
All right, final question comes from your producer. I was over for a trade this week in my work league. I would give up Torrey Smith, and in return I would get Eric Decker. It's a PPR league.
That's pretty even on both sides. Torrey Smith emerging, Eric Decker is really solid.
I think Decker gets more looks, more guaranteed receptions.
They're both on the
Decker's
same
got the
level.
more consistent quarterback
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Torrey Smith is definitely more of a home run hitter, but
I'd rather have Eric Decker. If it's a PPR especially.
yeah,
Yeah, I'd rather have Decker too, Jer.
All right, thank you.
unanimous Decker.
All right, thanks for your help.
Like this in the background. What the is it with you?
I'm going to send it back to Steve.
All right, thanks, Nick. Good luck to everyone out there in Week 6. A lot of bye weeks this week, so make sure you adjust your lineups accordingly. Hit us up with any questions or concerns you have during the week at Best Effin' Show on Twitter. Hit us up on Facebook. Shoot us an email. Check out the website, besteffinfantasyshow.com. Good luck. We'll see you next week.
Seriously, man, you and me, we're f***ing done professionally.